Why do the powerful often say so little? Why do men of influence guard their tongues as if words were daggers? Because when you reveal nothing, others reveal everything. Today, we uncover a problem that cripples leaders, rulers, and even ordinary men. The problem of speaking too much and losing power, and we solve it with the wisdom of silence. Power does not belong to the man who speaks the loudest. It belongs to the man who withholds. Every word you release into the air is a piece of yourself, a fragment of your strategy, a weapon surrendered. And once it escapes your lips, it no longer belongs to you. It belongs to those who hear it, to those who twist it, to those who use it against you. The common man believes that to prove his worth, he must speak. He fills the silence with explanations, with stories, with justifications, hoping to impress, hoping to be understood. But understand this, the powerful have no need to explain themselves. The powerful know that silence is far more unsettling than speech. For when you reveal nothing, you are not empty. You are unreadable, unpredictable, untouchable. In every room, watch how men behave. They compete to show their intelligence, their wit, their knowledge. They believe the act of speaking makes them strong. But in truth, it is weakness disguised as strength. The one who reveals himself through constant words exposes his ambitions, his fears, his blind spots. He becomes transparent, and once transparent, he is vulnerable. The ruler who speaks less forces others to reveal more. The negotiator who withholds his thoughts drives the other side into nervous chatter. The leader who listens quietly while others scramble for approval gains more than information. He gains control. For silence, if held with intention, is not emptiness. It is presence. It is dominance. It is the invisible hand that guides the room. Think of this carefully. People are addicted to certainty. They cannot endure the unknown. When you reveal nothing, you create a void. And the human mind cannot live with a void, it rushes to fill it. They will project their own desires, their own interpretations, their own truths onto your silence. And in that act of projection, they expose more about themselves than you could ever extract through questioning. When you hold back, you do not simply guard your secrets. You force others to give you theirs. They will tell you who they are, what they want, what they fear, because your silence compels them to. They seek clarity from you, and in trying to read you, they reveal themselves. A prince, a leader, a strategist must understand this principle if he is to rule effectively. Power lies not in flooding the air with your voice, but in making your silence the stage upon which others destroy their disguises. Consider this scenario. You sit at a council table. Men around you argue fiercely, each one declaring his opinion, each one trying to outshine the other. You sit still, revealing nothing. At first, they ignore you, for the loudest voices dominate attention. But soon, their eyes return to you. They wonder what you are thinking, what your position is, what your silence means. Their words grow more frantic, more desperate, as they attempt to pull you into the noise. Yet you remain unmoved, and in time they grow uneasy because men fear what they cannot read. They reveal more and more, while you absorb everything, holding every advantage without having spoken a single word. This is why kings spoke rarely in their courts, why generals revealed nothing before a battle, why merchants concealed their true desires in negotiations. They knew that to reveal little is to possess much. The man who talks endlessly leaves with nothing but an empty mouth, while the one who withholds departs armed with knowledge, insight, and power. And do not think this principle applies only to rulers and princes. It applies in every corner of life. In business, the man who rushes to explain his price exposes how low he is willing to go. In friendship, the one who overshares too quickly loses respect. In love, the person who confesses every feeling too soon weakens their allure. Power in all human affairs follows the same law. What is concealed holds more influence than what is revealed. So learn the art of restraint. Do not fear silence, wield it. Do not rush to prove yourself. Make them prove themselves to you. Understand that people are more afraid of not knowing what you think than of knowing you disapprove. Silence creates tension, and tension forces action. That is the secret. Power lies not in your declarations, not in your speeches, not in your desperate attempts to be understood. Power lies in your ability to withhold, to remain unreadable, to let others speak themselves into weakness while you remain the silent architect of the outcome. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is a mirror, polished and merciless, reflecting the soul of every man who stands before it. When you fall silent, you create an opening that others cannot resist. They see the stillness as a question, as a challenge, as a void that demands to be filled. And in their desperate need to fill it, they reveal themselves. Observe the nature of men. They cannot bear to stand before silence. It unnerves them, it exposes them. It weighs upon their minds like a shadow they cannot escape, and so they rush to speak. They confess, they argue, they explain, not because you ask them, but because your silence has forced them to confront themselves. Your silence becomes the mirror, and in that mirror, they see their own reflection, unfiltered, unguarded, unplanned. Consider how a ruler conducts himself among his advisors. The fool will interrupt, will boast, will attempt to dominate through noise. But the wise prince sits back, his eyes steady, his mouth closed. His silence creates unease. The advisors, unsettled, begin to speak more than they should. They argue among themselves, they justify their motives, they reveal their private fears, all because the silence of their master compels them to. And when it is over, the ruler has spoken almost nothing, yet he knows everything. This is the power of the mirror. It does not tell you what it sees, it makes others reveal themselves. A man who looks into silence feels the weight of judgment, whether or not you are judging him. He projects his guilt, his desire, his uncertainty into that stillness, and without realizing it, he strips away his own mask. Think of the courtroom where the accused sits before a silent judge. The silence itself becomes unbearable, heavier than any question, harsher than any accusation. The man begins to speak, not because he was asked, but because he feels the silence pressing against him. He defends, he justifies, he reveals his weakness, and the judge need only listen. The silence did the work. This is why silence is feared by the insecure and mastered by the powerful. Weak men dread silence because it forces them to confront themselves. Strong men wield silence because it forces others to reveal themselves. To hold your tongue is not passivity, it is strategy. It is the art of making the world speak its secrets without ever asking a question. In the council chambers of history, in the private rooms of kings, silence has been the most faithful servant of power. A single pause, a single moment of withholding speech, is enough to unravel the masks of those around you. When the tongue is restrained, the eyes, the hands, the tone of voice all begin to betray the truth. For silence magnifies every detail. In the absence of your words, every gesture of the other becomes louder, every glance more revealing. And remember this, people long to be understood. When you give them silence, they will interpret it as an invitation. They will talk more, explain more, reveal more, in the hope of drawing something from you. But what they fail to see is that in the act of trying to be understood, they are already giving themselves away. Silence, therefore, is not merely the absence of words. It is a tool of revelation. It is the mirror that strips away pretense. It is the stage upon which others perform their truths while you watch from the shadows. To master silence is to master the mirror. And to master the mirror is to make every man an unwitting actor in your theater of power. So when you find yourself in conversation, resist the temptation to fill every pause. Resist the weakness of proving yourself with constant explanation. Let silence breathe, let it linger. Watch how the other shifts, how they stumble, how they scramble to fill the space. In that scramble, in that nervousness, in that desperate need to escape the mirror you have placed before them, they will reveal who they truly are. Control does not belong to the man who indulges in every impulse. It does not belong to the man who reacts to every provocation, who shows his anger, who reveals his hunger. True control belongs to the man who restrains himself, who governs his own tongue, his own hands, his own desires. For the one who masters restraint does not simply control himself. He controls everyone around him. The world believes that dominance is loud, that power is demonstrated through aggression, through display, through constant movement. But understand this: the more you reveal your emotions, the more you act without thought, the more predictable you become, and what is predictable can be controlled. The man who cannot restrain his temper will always be provoked. The man who cannot restrain his greed will always be manipulated. The man who cannot restrain his words will always be deceived. Restraint, then, is not weakness. It is the very foundation of command. Think of the ruler seated upon his throne. His advisors bring news of betrayal. His generals argue for war. His enemies plot against him. A lesser man would lash out, would shout, would reveal his fears through anger. But the wise ruler remains calm, his face unreadable, his voice measured. His restraint unnerves his court, for they cannot see what he feels, they cannot predict what he will do. And in that uncertainty lies his power. To restrain oneself is to keep others off balance, to deny them the satisfaction of knowing your mind, to deny them the weapons they hope to use against you. Restraint is the art of waiting. It is the ability to hold back when others demand that you act. It is the patience to let your enemy reveal his weakness before you strike. The one who acts too quickly, too recklessly, may gain a small advantage in the moment, but he forfeits the larger war. The restrained man, however, waits until the right moment, and when he moves, his blow is decisive. Look closely at those who seem most powerful yet fall most quickly. They are men who could not restrain themselves. They spoke when they should have listened, they spent when they should have saved, they struck when they should have watched. Their lack of discipline betrayed them, for true control is not about how loudly you command. It is about how much you deny yourself in order to bend others to your will. Even in the smallest affairs, restraint commands respect. Consider a negotiation. One man grows impatient, eager to close the deal. He lowers his price, he reveals his desperation, he begs without realizing it. The other man, who waits in silence, who withholds, who shows no urgency, soon gains the upper hand. By restraining his eagerness, he forces the impatient one to expose his weakness. The same law governs every field, whether business, politics, or war. The one who restrains himself controls the tempo, while the one who cannot is dragged like a puppet by his own impulses. Restraint is also a mask. It allows you to conceal what lies within. Anger may burn in your chest, desire may stir in your heart, fear may whisper in your mind. But when you restrain these forces, you deny the world the chance to use them against you. A restrained man may be burning with rage inside, yet his enemy sees only calmness and begins to doubt his own position. A restrained leader may be desperate for victory, yet his troops see only steady confidence and rally with greater strength. By restraining yourself, you control not only your image but the very emotions of those around you. Understand, too, that men reveal themselves most when they lose restraint. Watch how a man behaves when provoked. If he explodes in anger, you have discovered his weakness. If he cannot resist showing off, you know his vanity. If he rushes to speak when silence is called for, you know his insecurity. Their lack of restraint is the map to their souls. Your own restraint, however, denies them such a map. It leaves them wandering in uncertainty, never knowing what you truly think, never knowing how far you are willing to go, never knowing what weapon you are hiding behind your silence. Control, therefore, is not gained through endless action, but through deliberate inaction. To hold back when others push, to remain calm when others rage, to wait when others rush. This is the posture of true power. For the man who restrains himself commands the rhythm of every exchange. He dictates when the moment begins, and he decides when it ends. And while others waste themselves in displays of passion, he gathers strength, he gathers information, he gathers advantage, until the time comes when restraint is no longer necessary. And his victory is inevitable. Steel may pierce the body, gold may buy loyalty, fear may bind men together. But none of these holds the permanence of information. Information is the true weapon of power, sharper than any blade, heavier than any gold, more enduring than fear itself. He who controls information controls perception, and he who controls perception controls the world. A king may have armies at his command, yet if he lacks knowledge of his enemy, his armies march blind. A merchant may hold vast wealth, yet if he does not understand the desires of those around him, his gold buys him nothing but ruin. Even the cunning schemer who plots in silence will fail if he acts without knowledge of the field on which he plays, for strength, wealth, and cunning all decay when they are not guided by information. Understand that information is not merely facts. It is the secret whispers in the court, the hesitation in a man's voice, the glance exchanged when they think no one is watching. It is what is said openly, yes, but more importantly, it is what is not said, what is concealed, what is denied. The wise man gathers both, the words offered and the silences that betray more than words ever could. Consider the prince who speaks little but listens to all. His advisors come before him, each certain they are guiding him with their counsel, each revealing not only their strategies but their ambitions. He asks few questions, yet by the end he knows who hungers for power, who trembles with fear, who is loyal, and who plots in secret. He has revealed nothing of himself, yet he has taken everything from them. This is the art of wielding information, not giving it but extracting it. To reveal your own information is to disarm yourself. To protect your information is to defend your kingdom, but to draw out the information of others is to conquer without bloodshed. Watch how men, in their impatience, betray themselves. The flatterer, eager for favor, will reveal what others whisper in private. The angry man, provoked, will confess his hidden resentments. The boastful one, desperate for recognition, will expose his plans before they are ready. They hand you their weapons willingly because they cannot bear the burden of holding them in silence. Information is also the architect of fear. A rumor, a whisper, a heft, truth released into the air can topple a greater foe than an army ever could. When men believe that you know more than you reveal, they tread carefully, uncertain of what advantage you hold. Suspicion becomes your ally, for in their attempt to conceal from you, they often expose themselves even more. The belief that you possess information, even when you do not, is enough to bend men to your will. In war, generals who possess the map of the land, the timing of supply routes, the numbers of their enemies, win before the battle begins. In politics, those who know the secrets of their rivals control the outcome long before a single word is spoken in public. In business, the one who knows the hunger of the market, the weakness of his competitor, and the desires of his customers dictates the terms while others scramble blindly. Information is the invisible hand that moves the visible world. But to gather information requires patience and restraint. It is not seized by force, but by subtlety. It is not shouted into your ear, but whispered when you have earned the trust or provoked the fear that loosens tongues. The wise man places himself where secrets flow freely, at the center of conversations, at the edge of disputes, in the silence after arguments. He asks little, but his silence draws much. He demands nothing, but his presence extracts everything. Be cautious, though. Information is not simply to be collected. It must be weighed, measured, and judged. Lies and truths intermingle, and only the discerning eye can separate one from the other. The fool accepts every word he hears, filling his mind with confusion. The master of power knows that even a lie carries value, for it reveals the intentions of the liar. Every piece of information, whether truth or falsehood, is a thread, and he who knows how to weave these threads creates the fabric of control. Do not underestimate the danger of ignorance. A man may be strong, rich, even feared, but if he moves without knowledge, he is like a blind man striking into the dark. His blows may land, but he cannot aim, and eventually his strength fails. Information gives direction to power, transforms it from raw force into precise dominance. To lack information is to hand yourself over to fate. To command information is to become fate itself for those around you. So guard your words, for they are your information, and every word you release weakens your defense. Hunt for the words of others, for their information is your weapon, and every confession, every hesitation, every slip of the tongue arms you further. Understand that the world is not divided between the strong and the weak, but between those who know and those who are blind. And it is always the man with information who bends the knee of the man with strength. You have now seen the truth that governs all who seek power. It is not the sword that conquers, nor the crown that secures a throne, nor the wealth that buys fleeting loyalty. Power belongs to the one who knows when to reveal nothing, who understands that silence is a mirror, who commands through restraint, and who wields information as his sharpest weapon. The world will always belong to the talkers, the impatient, the reckless, those who cannot endure silence, those who cannot master restraint, those who cannot guard their own secrets. They will reveal themselves, they will betray themselves, and they will hand their weapons into the hands of the man who waits, the man who listens, the man who knows. So remember this, the game of power is not played in noise but in silence, not in excess but in discipline, not in strength alone but in knowledge. Men destroy themselves by revealing too much. The wise man builds his dominion by revealing nothing. And when others speak, when they confess, when they empty themselves before you, understand that they have already surrendered. For the one who reveals nothing has already taken everything.